Rose, it is my pleasure to welcome you to the Soul Collective podcast. Thank you so much for being here today.
Well, it is my honor to be here with you as well, too, Emily. Thank you.
I was sharing a little bit before we started recording. I was doing some research on the Age of Aquarius, and I came across a fantastic article written by you, and it really spoke to the energy that we're moving through, the shift in consciousness. And I just became fascinated with you and your work. And so it's just really such a special gift to have you on and to be able to really explore some of the energies that we're moving through, which are quite significant shifts, I would say. But I'm so curious to hear your perspective on it all. We're recording this in February. And yeah, I think that would be a great place to start is just, how you're feeling about the energy of this time in particular.
Energy that we are currently experiencing is momentous. It is, this is an extraordinary time for each and every one of us to be alive on the planet. And it is an extraordinary time in your own life, in your own personal evolution, to be present for yourself. So we are really moving through the extraordinary, right? And yeah, it's quite amazing. As you just mentioned, coming up to the month of March, we have three major planetary shifts in March. Saturn is a 2.5-year transit through a sign. It will be moving out of Aquarius and into Pisces on March 6th. On the 26th of March, Mars, which has been traveling for 7 months in the sign of Gemini, normally a 5 to 6 week transit, will finally leave Gemini and move into Cancer, and that's quite significant for all of us. But the really, really big news is Pluto's first introduction to the sign of Aquarius, which will happen on March 23rd. We're only going to get a little introduction of it this year. Pluto's just going to dip into 0.5 of Aquarius. It's going to turn retrograde on May 1st. By June 11, it is going to back out of Aquarius, and we won't see it again until January of 2024. In 2024, we'll have a shift between Capricorn and Aquarius like we are this year. And by November of 2024, we'll start the long haul of Pluto and Aquarius all the way to 2044.
Yeah, quite a bit of significant shifts that you have so beautifully highlighted. And I feel like you're sharing about March being such a significant month. We're in February right now. Is there anything for us to be aware of, maybe in this period of relative calm before so much transition takes place?
Well, I think really it is just to be quite aware of, where you're at and what you're confronting. What are the messages coming in? What are you facing right now? What are you confronting right now? To try not to let yourself be overwhelmed, and to recognize that, you know, the stars really, in terms of moving through February, coming through this next week, Sun and Saturn are going to conjoin on the 16th of February. And that's going to be some kind of completion or some kind of solidification. I know that a lot of people are very, very stressed right now. There's been a lot of just the news, every day you watch the news and there's some other big story that's happening. And of course, most recently, my heart just goes out to the people of Turkey, that, devastating earthquake and how many people have been displaced, but it is but one of the stories on the planet. of extremes, of of a lot of trauma being heaped on people from various sources. So for right now, your presence is called upon, and it is for you to navigate through each day with presence. For the moment, overwhelmed, and just take it a step at a time, right? That's the best we can do. Whatever it is that you are uncertain about, whatever it is that you don't know about, I say give it 5 more minutes. You're going to know that soon enough. Try not to jump the gun. Whenever, and that's a terrible expression, sorry, but it is, anxiety does you no good. Worry does you no good. I have a friend who does affirmations, and she always says that worry is like a rocking chair, it takes you nowhere. Yeah, can breathe, when you can ease into it, you will find yourself on the right path. Yes, there are challenges along the way. Yes, there are really important decisions to make on the pathway ahead. But if you breathe into it, you will have an easier time.
I'm finding that guidance to be so, so helpful. So thank you for articulating that so beautifully. For me personally, I know that I'm experiencing more on a cellular level the change and transformation that's taking place, and I'm finding for myself just the need to spend more time alone, take some time in nature, to maybe just take a rest or take a salt bath or something like this. It's like really attuning to my own energy.
Absolutely. And, we are just finishing up Saturn in Aquarius. And that is a signature for social isolation and social distancing. It has been very apt for the COVID years of, all of us being on lockdown and all that kind of stuff. But it is in the moments when you can pull yourself out of the intensity of the day, the hecticness of the day, the worries of the day, the anxiety producing, and I think we're all running on this nervous tension. And if you can tune in, if you can tune to the energy fields, Aquarius is exactly that. It is frequency, it is energy. And we are, and Saturn is soon to move into the sign of Pisces. We already have Neptune in the sign of Pisces, and that's an archetype of attunement. So that is, the collective attunement. It is mass consciousness, but it is attuning in places of stillness, in places of quiet. We need quiet, we need solitude in order to be able to tap into the subtle energies, and those frequencies. And it's so vastly important.
Yes, I want to explore this theme a little bit more because you mentioned that Saturn is going to be moving through Pisces for about 2.5 years. And so would you recommend that people really find out where they have Pisces in their chart and where might be activated in their chart on a personal level? And then also just curious, the energy of Saturn and Pisces, does Saturn feel comfortable in Pisces? Like what is, because it seems like two very different types of energies that are blending, and how that might, manifest.
Well, yes. And so Pluto is a 2.5, I'm sorry, Saturn is a 2.5 year transit through a sign. And so it's going to spend 2.5 years someplace in your chart. So if you can find where that is and see what that setup is, it's going to give you some information. Saturn is the ruling planet of Capricorn, and Pluto is just exiting the sign of Capricorn, over this year and next year. And so Capricorn is the archetype of our existing reality, right? Pluto moving through Capricorn has been, the way I like to say it is, Pluto's been swinging its wrecking ball on any structure, system, consciousness, or reality that has outworn its time has come. Capricorn, Saturn rules this planet, this sign. deals with time limits, time frames, the end of times, and so forth, right? So we're coming to the end of something. And that archetype is actually a duality archetype, because as we finish, as we complete, we're also seeding for something next, right? And so this is the process. Saturn represents, your priorities, and it represents the evolving reality. Saturn corresponds to, in evolutionary astrology, which is the kind of astrology that I practice, deals with conditioning patterns. It deals with the energy, how you are judging your reality. And it is that inner judgment that that establishes, kind of a conditioning pattern that says it's supposed to go this way. It's appropriate to do this. It's not appropriate for this, right? Those are all judgment patterns. Saturn and Capricorn are about crystallization. As Saturn moves through Pisces, it is dissolving the crystallized patterns of consciousness. So this dissolving pattern, and Pisces itself is the archetype of relinquish, surrender, transcend. And so, there's this duality that's going on. As Saturn is moving through Pisces, it is dissolving a consciousness, dissolving a crystallized pattern. You might be saying, I have to keep going this way. I can't stop this. I need this job. I'm afraid to leave this relationship, this circumstance, whatever it might be. And so you perpetuate, again, conditioning patterns. Saturn conditions our reality. So then we have a judgment and we go about creating in that way. Saturn in Pisces is dissolving that kind of consciousness. So we spend 2.5 years moving through this particular programming of the dissolving pattern. Now, I have to say this as well too, because Pisces is a very all of the archetypes are very big, so there's a lot to say about the Pisces archetype. One of the ways that that Pisces dissolves, that consciousness, is through disillusionment, right? And disillusionment, I think, is pretty rampant on the planet. We're disillusioned with our governments, and we're disillusioned with our paychecks, and we're there's so much there. That's one way of dissolving the reality. Okay, so we have that component there. On the other hand, Saturn, is about crystallization. Pisces has two ways, it's the fish, two directions: relinquish, surrender, transcend. It's the 12th sign of the zodiacal wheel. It's the end of a whole 12-year, the 12-fold stages of initiation, right? So we're getting to this end here. It is where we have to finish off and let go anything that is not serving, that has arrived at its time has come moment. Must depart, right? So that is, moving that out of the way. What's underneath that is our potential, right? Pisces corresponds to our search for ultimate ideals, our ultimate vocation, our ultimate path of service, our ultimate other. Our ultimate other we look for oftentimes in partnership and so on, but the ultimate other, of course, is the divine, right? So all of that is mixed into this Saturn. So first we have that letting go, that dissolving process, and some of the things that we are needing to relinquish are things that we think are very precious. On the other hand, when all of that's cleared out of the way, we can discover the potential that is already starting to brew, that is as yet not reached the full light of day. So I invite all of your listeners to hold to hope, to hold to faith. Your life lessons, your purpose, you being here, your struggles, your broken heart, all of it is purposeful, and the more that we are in a state of acceptance, about the things that we cannot change, we can move into tapping into that reserve, those potentials that are waiting for us. I always say that, we are part of the divine. There is no degree of separation between anything in the universe, right? You and I are not separate. I'm not separate from the air that I breathe, and so on. We are all here to represent, and you have what I like to say, a God-given potential, a God-given right to realize your potential. And that potential, you are creator and you are divine. And it is your God-given right to creatively actualize to your very fullest. And that is your individual journey. I wrote an article many, many years ago, and I ended it with, how many grains of sand does it take to fill an ocean shoreline? And the answer, of course, is all of them. Each and every one of us. We are all important. We are all divine. We are all creators, and we are all contributors to the whole.
That's so beautiful, Rose, because I really think of, the vastness of an ocean when I think about Piscean energy. And I love how you describe this time as really burning away and releasing all that no longer serves us. And, one question that I wanted to ask you about was about the evolution of the soul and really how you got started with evolutionary astrology and what you feel like.
Your question has been about the evolution of the soul. And that is exactly evolutionary astrology. We look to the chart to understand the soul path and the evolution of the soul, where the soul has come from, what the intention is for the evolutionary forward. And the soul path is found in Pluto. Pluto is the ruling planet of Scorpio. And Scorpio is the regenerative archetype, death and rebirth, right? So is why we give it jurisdiction over the soul. And so Pluto will be sitting somewhere in your chart, and that will be your soul path, whatever sign it is in, right? Pluto travels 248 years once around the sun. And that ties us to a collective, and we are at the ending of an era and moving into another era, 248 years. Pluto travels 12 to 30 years through a sign, and so that's going to tie you to the generational pull, and then it's very specific in how it shows up in your chart. And evolution is non-negotiable, right? It's going to happen with or without your acceptance and your agreement. So for you to resist your evolution is to intensify the journey, right? So in each lifetime, we have a few different ways of evolving, and on the average, we have what we call slow and steady evolution, and that will be throughout a lifetime. You're going to have a couple of critical spots, a couple of intense things, but generally your life is going to operate kind of, at this kind of rhythm, with an occasional one or two, right? And then we have the cataclysmic, and the cataclysmic is, those intense experiential tracks that we have.
Are there any transits that you would associate with those moments?
Well, I can say that Aquarius is one of those, and we're moving into Pluto and Aquarius. So the dial is right up, right? This is coming to the end. Capricorn itself is an archetype of resistance, and we're coming through the Pluto in Capricorn years. Capricorn is the archetype of control, right? And none of us like to lose control. And so those who are afraid to lose control hunker down and try to tighten up, right? And those will be the despots of the world, the Putins of the world and so forth, who are trying to maintain control, fundamentalist religions, like what's going on in Iran, and so on and so forth, more resistance, the harder they fall, so to speak, right? Sorry, I lost my train of thought on your question.
Well, there's a
Uh,
couple things I wanted to, to mention. I wanted to go back to something that you said about Pluto in Capricorn, which is like the end of time. And I feel like, Pluto moving into Aquarius, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, is really envisioning and connecting with time in a way that's different, that's non-linear, that really invites more of the right brain way of thinking, more of this, you know, interrelated, interconnected way of seeing our journey through the cosmos.
well, Aquarius is multidimensional. It's multi-platformed. It's everything all at once, multidimensional. When I was a child, as I always had that kind of otherworldly thing. I used to have this imagination. I used to see my family sitting in the kitchen, and I used to just envision that there were a different family sitting there having a different conversation, right? It's like that. Cyberspace, for example, you and I are in this dimension right now. You know how many other people are on the internet right now in other dimensions? It exists. The multi-dimensional universe exists. But here's the main statement of Pluto moving out of Capricorn into Aquarius: we're never going back. There's an altered reality that is, we're right on the threshold, right on the doorstep of it. The things like, COVID is going to be over with and we're going to get back to some kind of business as usual. Well, no, that's not going to happen. Yesterday is not going to happen. And this is a very stark departure, I think, with Aquarius. Aquarius is radical, right? So this is a radical reinvention of existing reality from the ground up, right? And this is quite dynamic. Aquarius rules liberation and individuation, and it's group consciousness, and it's group and community and tribe, and it's all of that, but it's more than that. And first of all, let me say that the pacing with Aquarius is fast. Aquarius is an acceleration archetype. So we are going to move much more rapidly. And what the Aquarius energy level, it's like it does this, it does this kind of infrequent. And as we go along, that starts to get faster along the line, so it's speeding up that process. You may have had those flashes of inspiration, and they may have been this kind of one-off. Once in a while, some inklings into the far off future. When those things start to do like this is more immediate. This is around the corner. Okay. The Aquarius theme, it represents, let me say this, Aquarius represents what we call the Jungian principle of the individuated unconscious. What is contained within the individuated unconscious is long-term memory, right? So all of your memory is contained within that, right? And as we move through Pluto in Aquarius, that is going to reawaken your memory. What's in the memory banks, what's in the computer, right? So contained within your long-term memory is what we call cellular memory. Now, cellular memory, that corresponds to the irrational mind, right? The irrational mind is what I call, why are you all of a sudden attracted to this, and you pick it up like a duck to water, right? Maybe, got this sense of familiarity, this deja vu. Well, God, I'm a natural at this, why is that? Cellular memory, right? On the other hand, cellular memory also corresponds to frozen memory. And contained within frozen memory is what we call trauma consciousness, right? There's a and they're frozen, right? Pluto in Aquarius is going to be shattering that. So shattering the sound barriers of your soul. And so there's two aspects of that. It's going to uncover whatever it is that your soul is ready to take on now. And, Aquarius has to do with things like clairvoyancy, has to do with, super consciousness and so on. And in terms of evolution on the planet, it's evolution at all levels. And, it's interesting, I always say that, I've been an astrologer for a very, very long time. And I always say that I was a bit spoiled because astrology is something that everybody knows, right? So I found acceptance wherever I went, but things like vibrational medicine and, all of that, all those energy fields and all of that woo-woo stuff, a few years ago, that was left field. And now it's becoming mainstream. Do you see? Now we're saying, there's something in that energy medicine. Yes, I understand frequencies and, energies and all of that. And that I think we're at an explosion of, and that for me is very exciting. So those of you out there who are listening, who are really called to healing modalities and doing the healing work, the I am called, I want to encourage you because all of that, and the other the other end of it, the trauma consciousness. Well, there's so many people on this planet who are traumatized, and it is a reawakening of that. The Pluto process and Saturn as well too. These are clearing planets. We're clearing this stuff up. So it is for you to re-examine. These things are opening up so that we can re-examine. And you were asking me a few moments ago, sorry, I'm kind of off to the races here a bit, but you were asking me about the nodal axis, right? And the transing nodes are an 18-month cycle. They are where eclipses happen along, right? And so every 18 months we get a new polarity. Right now, the south node is traveling through Scorpio, and the north node is traveling through Taurus. And we're just about finishing off in the middle of July. That's going to switch to the south node moving through Libra and the north node moving through Aries. All right. So we're having this nodal switch. The Taurus Scorpio polarity, this transing nodal axis, has been taking place while COVID's been going on, right? And Taurus Scorpio is a survival axis, so it makes perfect sense that we've been examining this wherever the transing nodes go, wherever they're located in your chart. And that would be another thing to look at. What house are they going through? Because that's going to be about a year. It depends on how your chart is going through a particular area of your chart. And that's going to put a focus. And for people who know tarot, I always say that the transing nodes are like the major arcana of your chart, right? They're gonna dial up the content of that information. So the south node moving through Scorpio. Scorpio is an archetype of confronting of choice makings. It is an examination. It's looking deeper. It's taking a deeper dive. It's going into shadow. It's an uncovering process. It's asking the question why. It's going to those deeper levels. So what it's been doing for the past year and a bit here is uncovering information that your soul is looking to get to the bottom line. It's zeroing in on something that your soul has deemed is a priority for you to be looking at. That north node in Taurus is about taking you through an evaluation process. What's the value here? What's what's it worth to me? What's the value here? And again, that Taurus archetype, it's showing you where there might be some stuck energy, where there might be some inertia, where I need to evaluate this whole process of what I'm going through. So it's confronting to eliminate, right? And as we have Pluto moving into Aquarius in March, dipping back out in the middle of June and spending the rest of the year in Capricorn, for most of the year ahead, Pluto is in dynamic relationship to the karmic axis, to the nodal axis. It's forming a 90-degree angle. This, in evolutionary astrology, it's the Jeffrey Wolf Green material, is what we call a skip step. A skip step is, confronting a piece of unfinished business. It is a soul priority. You cannot pass go and collect your 200 until you do this work, and so that's exactly what it is confronting right now. Now, this is very interesting because when we look at the transiting nodes, we're looking at the rulers, right? So that south node in Scorpio is intensifying that Pluto transit, which is in Capricorn, which is dealing with the time has come moment. What is it now that is coming to an end for you? What is crystallizing for you? What are your judgment patterns around your existing reality? What are your priorities? How are they shifting? Right? All of that dynamic. And that north node in Taurus is taking you through an evaluation process. What has value and meaning to me? That's on an evolutionary track. Now that we've spent 18 months doing that, the south node is going to move into Libra, where it's going to be for 18 months. And Libra is ruled by planet Venus. So we now take Venus as the ruler of the north node and we plunk it over here as the ruler of the south node. So we take all of that evaluation process, what's it worth? What's of value and meaning here to me? And we take that now to examine through the dynamic of relationship. Libra is the archetype, I call it the theory of relativity. Me to you, and me to us. Libra is the social definition. When I'm in relationship, who am I? Right? And this is about me self-examining in terms of the me out there, the projected me out there in relationship to my world, to my others. And for me to take a look at how I am creating in that way, and how it is that I need to have the courage, Aries, North Node, to create a new identity for myself when I'm operating through my world, through my reality. And that's the face, social, the social context is in a rapid state of change, is it not? This is how we are looking at what is socially acceptable. What are the social norms? Well, what? It's time to change them.
Wow. Such a significant shift in energy when you're, talking about the nodal shift to Aries and Libra. And you said that's going to be happening for the next 18 months after July when the nodes shift. And what would you say an eclipse would represent?
Well, eclipses are either a new moon or a full moon. They take place in relationship to the nodes, right? And so they are, first of all, more punched up. New moons or full moons. They are accelerators, and they are going to be, bringing in fate, karma, destiny. Why? Because they are triggered by, I should say, the nodal axis. So that's bringing up that that content, right? And in terms of I just want to say this is my soapbox about the nodal axis and the understanding of the nodal axis, because there's a lot of writing out there that's really incorrect. Let me just say this. The south node is it's to the past. Yes, it does. And it is a composite. It is imprints from the past. And I see you having a little trouble with the technology. We're having that today. The south node is a gravitational pull, to the past, right? And these are imprints and so on. It's the subconscious that is always operating, right? And these are security patterns of the past, right? It's a composite of behaviors, personalities, and circumstances that have shaped your soul's bottom line desires and needs, right? And this is it, right? The North Node is the toolkit for your evolutionary forward. But there are some writings that say, ignore the South Node, go to the North Node, develop that and you'll be fine. What I always say is that you have to do all your homework before you can pass go and collect your 200. There is no spiritual bypassing here. You have to do all of your work. And when you can really work with the information at that south node and accomplish the task there, it will slingshot you to the evolutionary forward, right? So stick with it until you get the job done.
Would you say that if somebody has planets or points in Aries or Libra, that would be more accentuated period of time?
Oh, yes. Yes, absolutely. So, if these transits are hitting your personal planets, especially, then you are in it for a big year ahead. Yeah. I've got, I'm a sun in Aries and a moon in Libra, 27, 28 degrees, and these things are hitting me directly, so I'm looking forward to seeing where I'm going this year.
Wow, big year. So I want to go back to something that you said also, which was Mars moving out of Gemini, where it's been for the past 7 months. When does that happen, and how would that affect us energetically?
All right, yeah. So Gemini, all right, different than Aquarius, which is long-term memory. Gemini, ruled by Mercury, is short-term memory. All right, and Mars is generally a 5 to 6 week transit through a sign. So every 5 to 6 weeks, we get new fuel in the tank, and that's fine. Mars will move around your chart in a two. So every 2 years, you're going to have a Mars return. Now, in evolutionary astrology, Pluto represents the big picture soul, so your soul's deepest desires for your evolution. Mars embodies soul desires, right? So I always say Pluto says, I desire, and Mars says, yep, boss, I'll go do that for us. And so it's a whole experiential track. And Gemini is an information gathering archetype. All right. So Mars retrograde, any retrograde influence is an intensification on an individuation archetype. I call it lift and separate archetype. It's so you can take a step back and observe, right? So you are going to call forth with a retrograde, especially a Gemini retrograde or Mercury retrograde. It is it is calling forth some specific information that your soul is looking to re-examine. Now, when it comes to this 7 month transit, which, Mars is doing this as Pluto is finishing up in Capricorn, I will say, and perhaps, people listening to this will think back and recognize that you've probably been working through something that's been karmic in nature. And that it's some kind of review, whether it is a facsimile of something else you've been through, or whether it is a key relationship that you have brought back in to, do this dance with, or whatever that circumstance is. Now, from the middle of January through until March 26th, we're in the last third of that program. And Mars is in what we call out of bounds as well, too. So it's intensified. Out of bounds is how the planet is hitting the Earth, and it's at a high declination. And so that is intensifying the Mars journey. That's why everything is so dialed up right now. All the news and so forth is dialed up, right? So this is hitting the go pedal. And Mars has been working through this cycle with both a square to Neptune and a trine to Saturn. And the square to Neptune has been giving us a lot of uncertainty, confusion, fog. I don't know what's real and what isn't real. And that has been very, very confusing to people who've been working through, relationship dynamics, for example. I don't know what my decisions are here, right? These kinds of things. As Mars finishes up, it is going to, I'm sorry, I've forgotten the date. Maybe you will know that, Emily, but it is in March, just before Mars leaves Gemini. It will square Neptune. And as soon as it finishes in Gemini and moves into Cancer, it's going to form a lovely trine to Saturn in Pisces. So it should help with feeling a greater sense of security, I would think, in being able to let go. Right. If that's been that dilemma, it's always that kind of like, maybe if I stick it out a little bit longer, it'll work out. This will give you that opportunity to say, okay, I can just, I can let go of this now. So I think it's good. I'm looking forward to that.
Oh, wow. So, one other question that I have for you, this is incredible, and I really invite listeners to, go back through and listen to this again and, take notes because this is just jam-packed with so much, astrological insight and wisdom and helpful guidance for this year ahead. Um, Pluto moving into Aquarius is probably one of the indicators that we're moving into the age of Aquarius. And I'd love if you could share with listeners maybe the difference in energy between the age of Pisces and the age of Aquarius.
All right, so I have to disagree with you. All right, we're having a transit of Pluto in Aquarius, but it does not signal the age of Aquarius. Ages are 2,500 years, and we are in the age of Pisces right now. The transition of the ages is a lengthy process. It's about 500 years, and we can't really define it in terms of, it's the same thing of December 31st and January 1st. It's a developmental curve. However, Pluto in Aquarius is accelerating, right? So it's accelerating the breakdown. The age of Pisces, is the what I call the distortion of the true Christ principle, right? Pisces is a signature for Christianity and Christ teachings, right, and so forth. And what we've had the distortion of in the past, throughout this age, is the distortion of our understanding of the divine or of God or whatever you want to say. And what we have ascribed to in the past is that God is above us, right? And so as God is above us and we are created in God's image, then the hierarchy continues. Well, if God is above man, then man is above man is above woman, man is above beast, and man is above nature, correct? And this is where we are at the distortion of how we are creating existing reality today, dominance and submission. All right. And this is the whole of the planet, the denigration of women, the violence and abuse towards each other and towards everything on the planet, everything in creation. And we are now coming to, as we move into the age of Aquarius, we are the lesson is, as I said earlier in the show, that we are all interconnected and that we are all divine and we are all creators and we are all equal. Aquarius is the archetype of equality, equal, and so this is the shift of the planet, right? And we are going to come to recognize that, as I used to say a few years ago, and I may be aging myself, that we're not going to all get together and hold hands and sing the Coke song, if you remember that from the, I don't know, 70s or something. But we are going to be humbled and we are getting, pummeled, it's that, Aquarius big hits on that from things like earthquakes in Turkey that displace 2 million people and wipe out, 23,000 are now dead instantly. And this is where we are going to find our humanity when we recognize that we have to come to each other's aid, that we have to help. This is where we're going to find our humanity. And let me also say that Pluto moving into Aquarius, its signatures are, of course, it's the age of AI, artificial intelligence, space colonization. Aquarius is, revolution for evolution. Every time Pluto comes into Aquarius, as I wrote in my article as well, too, I went back a couple of, eras there. We always have tumultuous times regarding political and social structures, so we're looking for that in the birth of democracy for the last 248 years ago, and so on. It is also science and technology and so on. So what happens is there's modernization that increases the quality of life, right? And we see signs of that everywhere. So I have great hope, for the future. And I think that, as I said, Aquarius rules intelligence and super intelligence. And I think we are an intelligent species. And I think we are intelligent enough to figure it out. And so I think that we will be able to climate change and move fast enough to restructure on social and political levels and so on, right? And to move our science and technology forward. I believe in humanity. I do.
As an astrologer, what are you most excited about in the years ahead?
Well, I have to say I'm a little bit biased, and I'm really excited about astrology having a resurgence. So I'm very happy that it is being embraced now as a legitimate science, and that people are looking to astrology for intelligent information and for understanding themselves better. So I'm very happy to see that. But yeah, I'm looking to completely reinvent. I'm ready for it. I'm Aquarius rising. I like change.
How exciting. And I love that you're guiding us and embracing that in our lives in whatever way, shape, or form that might show up for us. So, Rose, do you still offer personal readings? And how can
Yes, I
people get
do.
in touch with you?
You can get in touch with me through my website, rosemarcus.com. I'm teaching evolutionary astrology. I teach a very involved course, and I'm doing a batch of other things, and you can find all that information out on my website.
Rose, thank you so much. This has been such an illuminating conversation, and I just thank you for sharing your wisdom and your heart with us today.
Well, it's been my honor. Thank you so much, Emily, for the invitation.
Awesome. And thank you all so much for listening. Again, go back through this, maybe with your chart in hand, so you can see how these key transits of the year ahead are going to be influencing your life and the energy of your own conscious evolution. So thank you all so much for listening. Sending so much love and gratitude.